Northampton certainly had anger and confusion and fear, but they responded with courage and compassion and resilience. And we're here today because of the dedicated people and our law enforcement and fire professionals. They risked their lives that night to save other people. And it shouldn't be lost on anybody that they do this every day. In the moment they responded as one. They were Northampton strong. They were Hampshire strong. They came from Greenfield. They did it because that is their duty and responsibility. And they rose to the occasion, and certainly lives were saved that night. We're going to forever live with the loss of Paul Yeske Jr. and Paul Yeske Sr. But we'll live with the fact that this community came together and helped neighbor recover from this terrible fire and this terrible era of arson. The era is over. I think that we can all take a deep breath today to know that the person who set all these fires from 2007 on has been held accountable, and now we have a long period of confinement where hopefully this troubled man will address the issues that created this entire tragedy for everybody. The citizens of Northampton were true victims in this case, but they did something that we can all be very, very proud of, and that was they wanted the justice system to work. There was no revenge, there was no retribution, there were no words other than, we want this to be taken care of in a fair and impartial way, and it was. Judge Sweeney created a level playing field for everybody. And we had some tough moments in this case, as you all know. We lost the interrogation of Anthony Baye. But the resilience of Elaine Yeske and her courage was really what helped all of us move on. We knew we had to do it, not only for Elaine and her family, but everybody in Northampton. And I couldn't be prouder of my prosecution team. The victim advocates, Heather Darling and Jackie Goff, who stood by the victims of all these fires and said, we're with you all the way, and we're going to make sure that you get through this whole ordeal. Matt Thomas, a citizen of Northampton who was impacted in his neighborhood. Tom Townsend, our appellate chief. And last but not least, Brett Vottero. I could not have appointed a more professional and committed team than the three people that I talked about that were our ADAs. Brett Vottero has made it a career for public safety and to fight for justice and take the toughest cases that we can try, and those are the arson cases where most of our evidence is destroyed. And he was able to lead this team in a committed way and get to the result that we have today. So I want to thank in particular Brett Vottero, who really is committed to justice and committed to making sure that our community was safe and secure. So we're going to move on today. We're going to look forward to getting back to the healing process. And certainly the loss to Elaine Yeske is immeasurable. There are no winners in cases like this. There will be no return to the laughter and the joy of Paul Yeske Jr. and Paul Yeske Sr. But the measure of justice is really about how we as a community came together and worked toward a just result. And I believe that the result here today is just. It will give us all a good night's sleep.
Today's sentencing closes a very dark chapter in the history of Northampton. And I want to acknowledge the Yeske family and thank them for the courage and dignity that they showed throughout this process in working to find justice for Paul Sr. and Paul Jr. and to all the other victims of these terrible fires. And I think Justice Sweeney said it right. the entire city of Northampton was a victim. Not only the terror spree that occurred on December 27, 2009, but for the years prior to that, and even the uncertainty that remained in the years up to today. But I also want to say that out of that, we understood the full strength of this community, a community that rallied together, not only on the night of the fires, but in the days and weeks and months after the fires. This community pulled together. It rallied everything from fundraisers to Facebook pages to neighborhood watches being organized. People taking care of people looking out for their fellow neighbors. I also want to acknowledge the men and women of our public safety departments in the city of Northampton, which responded so bravely and courageously that night, beginning with our dispatchers, those calm voices that you hear on those 911 calls. And in fact, the two dispatchers are here in the room. I want to thank them publicly for the work that they did that night and the coolness under incredible situation that you showed that night. And to our police and fire who responded, and I believe probably saved additional lives that night with the response that they had. And also to our surrounding communities, which responded with mutual aid. And finally, I want to thank the district attorney and Special Prosecutor Vottero and all of the investigators who worked on this case, as well as our police department that brought this suspect to justice within days, made this arrest within days of the spree, and today we're finally seeing justice served in his sentencing. So thank you again.
And I thank you, Mr. District Attorney, for your professionalism, your leadership. And you may not know, but the District Attorney has become a real leader in the whole issue of juvenile fire setting and has established a system here in the county that is a model not only for other parts of this state, but for the country, as we need to intervene early and deal with those juveniles that engage themselves in arson. And finally, to my good friend, we go way back, Mr. Vottero and I. He has been a prosecutor in this part of the state for many years, working with our unit on arson cases. There could not have been a better choice, just as you say, Mr. District Attorney, to put in front for this case. And Brett, I thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
On the fateful night of December 27th, I was the third Northampton firefighter on the scene of the Yeski house. And to deal with that situation and look out across the landscape and see several other fires burning certainly challenged not only our department and other public safety departments, but the community as a whole. And together we rose to that challenge. We did things that have never been done in the Massachusetts Fire Service to go door to door to meet the needs of the community, to put fire apparatus and police officers on the streets to just talk to people, to deal with the fear that became palpable. Over the past several years, we've emerged, we've certainly become strong, and some of the best things that have happened are the relationships that have been strengthened with the police department that will last long after this situation, with the state fire marshal's office, the state police, the DA's office, and the other investigators. Those are the things that are going to help us continue to be strong as a community and for public safety officials to serve the community well moving forward. Thank you.
They did a phenomenal job here. We're extremely grateful, and the community is grateful for this. And today ends one of the darkest days in the history of the city of Northampton. And hopefully we can move forward in peace and without fear. Again, thank you very much for everything that was done. Deepest condolences to the Yeski family.
Filled with so many heroes and positive examples. The two dispatchers, Christine Vottero and Megan O'Connor, they begin the list. We listened to the tapes of 911 calls and the dispatch countless times over the last 3 years. Each time listening, looking for evidence, but every time we did, we were just impressed at how professionally both of those public servants behaved that night. We had a chance to talk this morning. I want to acknowledge Officer Corey Robinson. Consider this for just a moment. Corey Robinson stopped Anthony Baye at about 3:40 in the morning. No one knew at that point that the fires had stopped. At that point, everyone was simply waiting for the next fire. Corey Robinson spent 20 minutes in a street encounter with Anthony Baye because his instincts told him something wasn't right. Imagine, well, you're here to see your girlfriend, why don't you give her a call? She's not home? Where does she live? Why don't you go knock on that door? Those were just good instincts. And they were followed up within 24 hours. There were over 300 tips coming in, and Officer Robinson said, I'm going to go back and follow up on that because it just didn't seem right. And so he made contact, and that was when the first statement from Anthony Baye was taken. And then the next hero appears from the CPAC unit, Trooper Will Medina. Trooper Will Medina had an instinct, and you could almost see it in his eyes in these videotaped interviews. And right after that first interview, Trooper Will Medina followed up. And all of these things were absolutely essential to the ultimate outcome in this case. It wouldn't have happened if it weren't for those good police officers. And then there's the next hero, Trooper Michael Mazza, Sergeant Paul Zipper. I've had the benefit of working with Michael Mazza for close to 20 years. And I've had the experience of witnessing and watching many, many interviews. And there is no finer police interviewer than Michael Mazza. And you don't need to just take my word for it. You can take Anthony Baye's, because I see that the media has now been playing some of the tape recording that the jury would not be permitted to hear. And I think what you see in that interview is exactly what Anthony Baye expressed. He treated Anthony Baye with nothing but respect. With respect and compassion. And that interview was critical. And yet when it was lost, Trooper Mazza, Sergeant Zipper, and everybody else associated with the case responded with renewed effort. The West team with Trooper Joe Gurra, Dave Percy, anytime that I asked for something, they were there. And for most of the last month or so, we've met daily. And I want to also acknowledge Daryl Springman from Northampton Fire, because once we knew that we were going to need to build a stronger case, we turned to Daryl. And we asked Daryl for assistance in pulling together every piece of information we could find about fires in Northampton and surrounding communities. We looked everywhere for evidence. So all of those people, Northampton Fire, Northampton Police, the State Police Unit, the Fire Investigation Unit, worked together. I also want to thank these two prosecutors here from David Sullivan's office, Matt Thomas and Tom Townsend, and the victim witness advocates, Jackie Gaw and Heather Darling. This was truly a team, and we've enjoyed working with each other. Finally, as I said to Judge Sweeney today, I've never had a case where I truly felt the community had been victimized as much as this case. And so all of us felt it as we worked on the case. All of us were determined to be successful, and all of us are very, very pleased and very proud of this result. And I've enjoyed working on behalf of the City of Northampton. I look forward to spending much more time in this community. Thank you.
Everyone that supported me during this terrible ordeal. I just want to thank everyone in the bottom.